Hi guys, I'm Phill O'Neill from Australia and I hope you're having a fantastic day. This week I had the privilege of sitting down with principal trumpet player of the Knoxville Symphony Orchestra, Phillip Chase Hawkins. Now he goes by the name Chase and he's the principal trumpet of the Knoxville Symphony Orchestra. He's a trumpet soloist, Yamaha artist, husband, father, and just a great guy as well. So it was really special to be able to sit down with him and interview him for this channel. So stick around and check it out. Unfortunately, I had a couple of technical difficulties and the little bit at the end, there's no video for it, but the audio is still there and it's definitely worth hanging around for. As always, remember to hit that subscribe button, tick the bell notification icon as well, and that way you can stay tuned for more trumpet related videos. Alright, stick around for the interview.
Hey guys, I'm Phill O'Neill from Australia and I hope you're having a fantastic day. So today we've got a very special guest all the way from the Knoxville Symphony Orchestra, the principal trumpet, Chase Hawkins. Thanks for being with us, Chase.
Thank you so much, Phil, for having me.
Yeah, man, it's great to have you here. Recently, you've come down. Oh, why don't you explain, why have you come down to Australia this trip?
Well, my main purpose was Pacific Brass had picked up the idea of recording Brendan Collins' new soprano cornet concerto, which he wrote for me just this year, and we did that recording this past weekend, and that went fantastic. The Pacific Brass is a really excellent brass band here in Australia, really promoting not only Australian music, but really trying to promote the brass band and make it more well known throughout the world. And I think they're doing a fantastic job at that. And I'm certainly happy to be a part of that this week. But I'm also while I'm here, I've just finished a couple days residency at the King School, working with a lot of their grade 6 through grade 12 students. I am just about to start a 2-day residency here at Barker College, where we are currently, where I'll also be adjudicating for the New South Wales Band Association Solo and Party Championships. Really looking forward to hearing all the kids.
Yeah, great. It's a bit of a fun weekend. I've competed in that several times myself, and yeah, it's always a lot of fun to a good get together for people and hear who's done the most practice in the year as well. So it's always a lot of fun.
Yeah, I've also stopped into a couple of the local music stores and just sort of seen what they have to offer, and I'm really impressed with the spread of instruments, particularly that I found at Saxon Woodwind.
Yeah, right.
Amazing instruments, all different manufacturers, a pretty good spread for anybody to come in and try. So that's been a fantastic find.
Yeah, that shop's been there a long time. And, it's kind of survived the test of time, and a lot of other shops have kind of been and gone, and that one's still hanging around. So not sure what they're doing, but it must be right.
Certainly.
Yeah. So first of all right, there are 3 questions that everyone wants to know. Yeah, I get this a lot. So the first one is, how high can you play? What mouthpiece do you use? And are you going to break my teeth now, or are you going to wait until I get a little bit closer to your standard?
Oh, Jesus Christ. Depends on how many beers you get in me first.
Oh, right. Yeah.
How high can I play? Almost every student has asked me that since I've been here.
It's a common age-old question. Every Facebook forum I've ever seen, it's all, can you? I struggle to play this high. I can get this high, but I can't get this high. It's really disappointing to see one aspect of trumpet playing spend so much focus time on. So, I guess
my question is, my answer to that is, I don't really know. Because, as primarily an orchestral player, I do a lot of solo work, which is what brought me here to Australia to begin with. But I don't particularly fancy myself as a lead trumpet player. Certainly have to do my role of that in the orchestra and some of the local big bands around the areas where I live and play. But, if you can play a G above high C, you can play 99% of the repertoire out of there.
Yeah, and you refer that to the second G above the stave?
Correct.
Yeah. So, that's pretty consistent with a belief that I've kind of had as well, yeah.
But I think one of the issues is, I used the term myself, and I didn't mean to. what we call a high note. Because it's all relative to you, but if you flip the page upside down, it's not a high note.
Exactly right.
So if my take is, if you can visualize the notes directionally outwards rather than trying to see a higher distance, we're all afraid of heights to
exactly,
some extent. So if it's something you can easily walk to, it's much more easily to achieve mentally, which is the game.
Yeah. It's funny you say that. I've been working with my students this last week, especially, who have been, I'm trying to get that high note. It's like, no, stop thinking up and down. The trumpet is forward direction, So think forwards and get that note to speak. Look out the window, point a distance out to where you want, and aim for that note to speak on that point, without playing loud. Is kind of, I like to use a lot of visualization. What about yourself?
Visualization in terms of mental imagery.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, awesome.
The reason why they consider music an art form is because we have the ability to paint a picture with the sound.
Yeah, great.
I do the same sort of thing with my students. If you don't know what you're searching for, well, how can you expect to find it?
Yeah, that's a great concept. Yeah. Now, one of the things, so obviously questions that everyone gets asked are, tell us a little bit about your story and how you got to where you're at today, right? So obviously you're principal trumpet with Knoxville Symphony Orchestra.
Correct.
And how did you get from starting through to the Knoxville Symphony in a minute and a half? No, just kidding.
Well, that's a little hard to reflect back on, actually. Yeah. I guess my story, when I first started playing the trumpet, the first concert I ever attended was that I remember, symphony concert I attended, was an Atlanta Symphony Orchestra concert, and on the program was Pines of Rome. I had just started playing the trumpet at the time. I was maybe 3 or 4 weeks into it, and so lucky that I started with a really fantastic teacher from day one, sort of in the middle, isolated in the middle of nowhere in South Carolina.
So who was that teacher?
His name was John Sizemore. He was a tuba player, and he was, for a little while, a sub with Chicago Symphony. And he moved down to South Carolina because his wife at the time, or current wife, sorry, I should make sure I clarify that. Same wife. She is a school teacher and got an excellent job down there, and that's his home area anyways. So I just luckily found him somehow. Yeah. And got started, with a good embouchure, a good set, and making sure everything's really, no possible problems come in physically whenever you're playing. I think this is really important for teachers everywhere out there, is to make sure your brass players are started well from the absolute beginning. One of the issues that I encounter with students a little bit is, just mouthpiece is particularly really low on the top lip. And it's difficult to play the trumpet when that happens because your top lip is the one that vibrates. So I don't mean to be going off
it's all good
route, but it's sort of relative to my story, because who knows what would have happened if I hadn't had that experience with him from the very beginning. But so at the time, James Thompson was the principal trumpet player in Atlanta Symphony at that concert, and I remember seeing him get up on the stage and walk off the stage, and asking my teacher, "Hey, where's he going?" He's like, "Shut up, just listen. You'll find out." And then I heard this just gorgeous, beautiful sound come from backstage, and I was pretty much sold on playing the trumpet from that day, purely because you could play off stage and people didn't have to look at you.
Yeah.
But so then a couple years after that, I call him Jim, but James Thompson came up to my area at North Greenville College, which was very close to where I grew up, and gave a master class, and I performed in that master class. And I worked really well with him from a young age, especially because I'd heard this guy play. That's what I want to do. I already knew that at the time. And then when I was searching around for universities to go, at that time, Jim had left Atlanta Symphony and became the professor at the Eastman School of Music.
Yeah.
And when I went for my audition there, it was so comfortable, so welcoming, and Jim remembered me from the early experiences that we had, and so it was really more of an extended lesson that it turned into sort of not a formal audition. And the whole experience was made comfortable, and I ended up at Eastman School of Music, where I got to work very closely with Dr. Mark Scatterday and the Eastman Wind Ensemble. And that was just an incredible experience for me, and I find myself now still missing the experiences that I had with that band. But at that time, I was very, very orchestrally focused. That's all I really wanted to do. And then I left there. I did 1 year of my master's at Manhattan School of Music.
Yeah.
And New York was a fun place to visit to me, but I really did not enjoy living there. I did love how much, any food I could possibly think of in the world, any type of beer. I mean, it's a short metro ride. You guys understand that here.
Exactly,
Sydney, far better than the Americans even. It's
and that's something we complain about a lot. Our public transport system, it's never good enough, and
well, actually, I think it's fantastic. I've had an absolute blast.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Figuring out how to navigate the metro systems here, and you can get anywhere within just a 1 or 2 minute walk from a station.
Yeah,
that part has been fantastic.
Yeah, that's great. That's awesome. So, you were down in Australia. You mentioned you were here to record a composition that Brendan Collins wrote for you. How did that come about? How did you, well, first of all, how did you come by Brendan's music? Because he's all the way down here in Australia and you obviously over in the States. How did you first come by Brendan's music? And then how did you come by to build the relationship to where it is today for him to write a concerto for you?
Well, there's a little bit of an interesting story. So I attended a performance, a recital that Rex Richardson, who's become a really good friend of mine, he did a recital at Grand Valley State University in Michigan, and he performed, on that recital, he performed Brendan's trumpet concerto, and I really fell in love with the music from that moment. It's beautiful melodies, the harmonies are really fantastic. The trumpet playing portion has a lot of subtle intricacies that on the page don't look so difficult, but when you start ironing them out, then you, as a trumpet player, it possesses a lot of challenges, but they're not forefront to the ear. So I didn't
unless you don't nail
how hard it was to navigate through a couple little portions of it. But that's what made me even more interested in it, because hey, it's music that's really easy to listen to for any type of audience. It has beautiful melodies, which are a joy to perform as well, and the harmonies are really dense and move around. So I asked Rex if he could put me in contact with Brendan, and within just Rex had sent my email to Brendan, gave him my name, and mentioned that I was interested, and Brendan had scoured all of my resources online, videos, SoundCloud recordings, Facebook. I think he found more than I know is out there. And just not very shortly after that, I had a brand new trumpet sonata sitting in my email.
Oh, wow.
And at the time, I had started my doctorate degree in music at University of Kentucky and transferred it to University of Cincinnati. And I was looking for a final project for my dissertation work. And, I wanted to find something that I can get multi-purpose use out of. And as a performer, what better way to do that than a recording?
Yeah, awesome.
So I discussed the idea of putting together a recording of all of his trumpet music at that current time. And just this January, we released our first disc, which we have
this
right
one here. Awesome.
Called Great Southern Land, Australian Music for Trumpet by Brendan Collins. and it is available on iTunes, Amazon, Spotify, wherever you can find it.
That's great. I actually went looking for this when because I as you know, I played with Pacific Brass for the recording, and then when I found out and looked up your name, and I went and looked up, and Spotify is the first place I like to go to Spotify and YouTube to find music, and found this recording, and I must admit this was the first time I'd actually heard your name, but it's fantastic music and just beautiful sound and clear, controlled playing, and the melodies, as you say, that's what makes music and colours that picture that you were that we were talking about earlier with imagery, and
Sure.
So that was fantastic.
Spotify has been one of those amazing resources for me. I primarily use it to just search and discover artists.
Yeah.
And when I find something that I really enjoy, I'm more than happy to purchase the albums. I like to have physical copies. I like to read the liner notes.
Yeah,
Otherwise, you're not really learning anything about the pieces themselves.
Yeah, and that's where I really enjoy Spotify. I was really reluctant to get Spotify because I felt like the artists would get more money through through CD purchasing and that sort of thing. But I'm discovering way more music since being on Spotify, so it's just been such an awesome resource for me, especially. So getting onto some stuff to help audience members. So me, with my trumpet playing career, there's been several times where I've just thought, that's it. I just can't get this. I quit. Trumpet should go in the case, right? Have you ever felt like that before?
We've all experienced this at some point. Oftentimes, it can be just your methods of practicing, not being careful and overlooking all of the little details that yourself you should be doing, but are reluctant to actually iron out, because that's the nitty-gritty work that nobody really wants to do. But oftentimes, if you can get that sorted out, opportunities do tend to fall in your lap.
Yeah.
And I've certainly had that happen numerous times, but at the same time, one way that I have sort of maybe, I wouldn't say gotten out of the rut, because I don't think I haven't been put in that point. But talking about the job markets and what we have to do as trumpet players, when I was mentioning earlier that I was, purely orchestrally focused, that allowed me to win my position that I have with Knoxville Symphony. However, I didn't really know what the requirements are in the job. In America, I'm sure it's probably the same here. We are doing so much more outside of the standard orchestral literature. Yeah. We're doing new compositions with the orchestra, very avant-garde stuff. Not always, but sometimes. Yep. We're doing lots of film music. Yep. And that industry is fantastic, but, in the studios, those bits and pieces that you hear in the movies and recordings even were not really meant to be played at one time. Yeah. So the physical nature of sitting and playing down an entire Star Wars movie, for example,
it's very taxing.
It's very taxing. It's much harder than what the guys actually had to do in the studio. But also very similar, because you get one time to do it and that's it. Yeah. Otherwise, it costs you money. Yeah. So outside of that, we've had to do a lot of jazz tunes in the orchestra. I mean, I've improvised in the orchestra more times than I think I ever did in a big band. Yeah, right. And so I try to talk about how important it is to be a well-rounded trumpet player. And finding the curiosity in all other styles of music, because the reality is, when you're young, you have absolutely no idea what you're going to be doing for a career. In fact, I didn't know anything about the brass band world, really, except that it existed. Yep. Until I moved to Lexington, Kentucky, where there's a very fine brass band, and I started playing with the brass band because I was curious what they do. And then sort of learning the culture that's been built, especially in Europe, and has now expanded all over the world. It's a much different sort of thing, and also the music is far more difficult than I would play in the orchestra. So when I when I spend time playing with the brass band and really shedding out some of the licks you have to play there, I mean, going back home to my job is the easy part.
Yeah. It's definitely so true, and that's where like me growing up in the brass bands and seeing the black pages and having to sit down in the woodshed and figure it out. You know, the hours of spending time on 1 or 2 bars just to try and get those 2 bars right. I don't think I've experienced that anywhere else.
And what I think is also really important to talk about here as we're talking about the subject of brass band is we all want to be a professional. But what does being professional mean? Because we grow up with this idea that means making a lot of money in your career, right? We think the financial success defines professionalism. But I believe that professionalism is purely a standard that you hold yourself to at all times.
Yeah.
And that can be as a student in your university, absolutely trying to do the best job that you can do at all times.
Yeah.
And in the brass band world, it's strictly volunteer.
Yeah.
And that is how the brass band has evolved for years since its inception. So you get these amazing collection of fantastic players that are all there because they want to be there. They're not there for the paycheck.
Yeah.
They love it, and it is an extremely high level of product because everybody is there for a common interest.
Yeah. And they're the guys that turn up early. They're well dressed when they turn up. They've done their warm up before the rehearsal starts. They help set up. They help pack up. So the professionalism goes far more than just turning up and playing, really. It's, you know, being there, being prepared, knowing your part before you turn up as well, you know. That's something that I notice a lot of kids today struggle with. You know, they turn up unprepared, you know. Now, that doesn't mean practice for hours on end for that gig, but it means that if you've got a sight reading gig, make sure you know you can sight read.
Absolutely.
You know, if you've got a gig where you've got to improvise, make sure you know you can get around at least a 12-bar blues, for argument's sake. You know how to get yourself out of trouble if need be, and then just spend a little bit of time each day or every week improving every aspect of your playing, you know.
Yeah, if good sight reading is not a part of your daily bag of tricks, then you're missing out on far too many opportunities for playing.
Exactly right. Yeah.
Especially with anything that's recorded in studios. I've done a fair amount of stuff in Nashville, Tennessee. Mostly with video games, but some amateur films as well. And you show up, you bring whatever horns and mutes that you have, and you hope you have it all. And you have no idea what they're going to put in front of you. It could be any style of music.
Yeah.
And you have to, you'll have a few minutes to kind of look things over. A lick, you're not generally recording an entire piece at one time, but sometimes you're asked to do that, and then you go back and fix it later. So you just mentally have to be strong, and that has nothing more to do than just good preparation that you've put into trumpet playing itself.
Yeah, and that's where, like, Malcolm McNabb is one of my trumpet heroes, and he was just so consistent and nailed everything every time. And you know, it wasn't until after he retired that I realized he actually played most of that on his E-flat trumpet.
Yes.
Yeah, which was just, you know, transposing everything as well, like reading some of the some of those challenging lines that he was playing and transposing it. And it's like, you know, mind's blown. Such a fantastic player, and you know, I love listening to him play anytime, really.
And that's nothing more than purely ear training. I mean, Malcolm is one of those people. One of the my favorite things about where I live in Kentucky is Vince DiMartino, who has always been an idol of mine, lives just down the road. And he also, just same way as Malcolm does, has the ability to translate what they hear into their fingers.
Yeah, right.
You give them any trumpet in their hands, and the note that they hear automatically goes to the right fingering. It's incredible. That's a skill that I'm also trying to work on and haven't mastered myself. Yeah. But even they don't feel like they've ever mastered that.
Do we ever feel like we ever master anything?
No, then we should give up because we have nothing else to give if we feel like we've mastered it.
Yeah. Well, I suppose that's a good point. So just quickly, all right, you've got your case here. Let's have a look. Let's grab out your case.
All right.
And let's have a look at what you've got in your bag of tricks.
All right.
I'll just grab that for you.
Sit it right up here. It's not exactly normal that you see. Not exactly normal that you see this collection of 4 horns put together in a trumpet.
Yeah.
case.
Well, let's start with the case. What is the case?
Well, yeah. Oh, I'm not sure I can really talk about this, but this case is a Bags of Spain case, which Stomvy also sells. I purchased one through Stomvy. But I had been talking. I'll give a little jab to my Yamaha colleagues a little bit, but I had been asking for many years if Yamaha would ever be interested in making a case larger than the double trumpet cases that they ship all of their horns in, and it's a hard market really to do that when you're such a large corporation. Because they wouldn't sell as many of them as they would sell the double trumpet cases.
Yeah.
Because most of the time they just come with the instruments themselves. So I did happen to pop off the logo of an old Yamaha Xeno trumpet case and epoxied it on there, and I jokingly took it up to Bob Malone one day and said, "Hey, look, Yamaha does make a quad trumpet case."
That's very clever. I'm sure they appreciate the thought.
I don't think it went over too well, but it was purely meant as a joke. But anyways, I love this case. I've never had any issues taking this on any plane. I also have a Brass Bags triple case, which is what I usually use when I don't need more than 3 horns, but I know that case fits on every single puddle jumper plane, the smallest planes possible. It will go on. So, but this Stomvy Bags of Spain, whatever you want to call it, case, it fits on every larger commercial flight very well. So
yeah, great.
Having that comfort is nice.
Yeah, awesome.
But the horn that I use primarily in the orchestra and soloistically is this is the second generation Yamaha New York C trumpet, and I've just been in love with this horn. The colors that I can get out of it, it's the best response that I've played on any C trumpet. So that's my baby. I love that instrument.
Yep, that's your desert island horn.
My all-around B flat is the mouthpiece down, but that's all right. I have several hundred of them. I'm sure I'll find another one. This is the LA model Yamaha 8335 LA Wayne Bergeron model B flat, and for me, it's a good all-around instrument that I can use as lead in the big band, all the way down through, beefing out your way through the Carmen Prelude. It's maybe not an appropriate instrument for me for brass quintet. The sound's just a little bit bigger than I would like it to be for that, but certainly works for it's a great multi-purpose instrument.
Yeah. I struggle with that one because it's fine for me in big band, but because I'm naturally a brighter sounding player, it's a little bit too bright for me to sit in an orchestral section. So it doesn't really work great for me in that sense. But yeah, whenever I was playing lead, effortless. Yeah.
You just need a mouthpiece that's the shape and big enough that you can pour oil in your car, and it'll work just fine. I promise.
Might as well get a flumpet if I'm going to do that.
The next instrument is the one that I recorded the soprano cornet concerto on.
Yeah, that's the Brendan Collins
instrument that I have acquired, actually.
Yeah.
This is the Yamaha Neo E-flat cornet, and I've played several of these over the years. In fact, I owned a Schilke for many years, which was a fantastic instrument. I was very happy with the sound and the response that I got out of it. And then this year at the National Trumpet Competition, Yamaha brought along this particular horn, and I had to have it.
Yeah.
It made everything easier that I didn't know could have been easier
Yeah.
than what I was doing at the time. And, like all trumpets, they're all so different from one to the next. And sometimes they just fit the player, and sometimes they don't. That doesn't really have anything to do with what model it is, but often just that particular horn and how it's put together. And this one just spoke to me right off the bat, and I did not want to leave that day without it.
I'm glad you said that, because it's not about I should play these trumpets because this is what Chase Hawkins plays.
Yeah.
It's these are what Chase plays because these are the horns, but the combination of the mouthpiece, the horn, and Chase that works the best for you.
That all makes it, and it's there's so many variables in what we do, and certainly matching a mouthpiece to a player is oftentimes fairly difficult, but when you put that into the instrument, it's an exponentially bigger difference.
Yeah.
So,
and even the right mouthpiece and player for the horn. So I've noticed you've got a different mouthpiece for each of these different instruments as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I as far as I know, I don't think I used the same mouthpiece on any two horns.
Right.
That's not an issue. A lot of people will use the same mouthpiece for B flat and C trumpet. But I have yet to find one that allows me to get the response the same way on either horn. I can get similar characteristics of sound between the B flat and the C, but it's just a little bit different in the articulation.
Yeah.
And I really want to have the security of having a very fast response from the horn.
Yeah.
Because that allows you to move and be more flexible on the instrument. So it sort of creates a relationship between you and the instrument, and finding that balance is the only way to make that work.
Yeah. And your last horn here?
And then my last horn here is, this is the 180th anniversary model of the Besson Sovereign B-flat cornet. And it looks really pretty. In
the
satin
frosty,
silver. And it's a hard horn to find. You're lucky if you find them available now. I'm not sure if there are any new ones being sold now, but as far as I know, I think this was one of 70 instruments that was produced as the, in this finish, a special dark blue case and a gold-plated rim, satin silver 3B Dennis Wick mouthpiece.
Oh, the 3B,
Yeah, I'm not a fan of the 3B.
I used to when I was younger, but
I can't make it work. But I typically play a Wick 4 mouthpiece on it, and it's a good relationship between this horn and myself. And I used this horn specifically with the Fountain City Brass Band, with the instruments that other members in the band play. This sort of fits the mold of the sound quality that the whole band is putting out. So
And would you use this in the orchestra as well?
Well, I have actually used it in the orchestra. We did, trying to remember what we did most recently. Swan Lake.
Swan Lake?
We did a collection. I think we did a suite from Swan Lake. And I used this instrument for all of the cornet parts. It works in our hall. So this instrument, compared with some of the American makers, some of the European makers, Besson is obviously a European maker, but this horn has a much larger bore than most of the American cornets, and it just gets a deeper, I wouldn't say necessarily a more resonant sound. It's just very dark compared to some of the instruments. Like a Bach 184 cornet, for example, which is also a very fine cornet, but this is a very different sound than that.
Built for different reasons.
And I'm not sure I'm sure the right player, the right mouthpiece combination may work, but for me, I don't think this horn would work in a much bigger hall than where I play in Knoxville. So when we're talking about equipment, oftentimes the equipment that you choose to use is not necessarily the equipment that works best for where you play. and that's not something you have to worry about before you have the position.
Mm.
It's not necessary to go out and buy an instrument that New York Philharmonic is playing in that section just because you're auditioning for that orchestra or a similar size space. It's not necessary.
Yeah.
But certainly when you're working within the sound of the group, then maybe it's good to experiment. I think it's always good to experiment and find out what works best for you and what works best for your colleagues and serves the ensemble the best.
Yeah, awesome. And so, what mouthpieces have you got with each of these horns as well? So you got the 4
question.
with the.
I have 4 horns here, but you have like 12 to 15 mouthpieces or something here.
Oh, right. So you're changing a lot, sort of.
Yeah, you never know how you feel from day to day. No, I'm just kidding. No, so I'm playing a recital this weekend here at Barker College, and I'm using some different mouthpieces just for different sounds and different colors that I want in specific pieces that I'm playing in the recital. So that's one reason for carrying along a bunch of other things. Plus, I'm working on my orchestral music that I have coming up, so I use slightly different stuff for that. But currently, on my C trumpet, I am playing a Toshi mouthpiece. This one is a 1.5 CB with a 25 throat and a Mount Vernon backbore.
Oh, right.
Whatever all of that means, I'm not a super techie guy.
Me neither. Yeah.
In fact, I don't want to know what I'm playing when I'm trying out equipment.
Yep.
Because oftentimes these numbers, we get these perceptions that the number is going to make it right for you.
Yeah.
And that doesn't matter because everybody's so uniquely different. They're really almost arbitrary numbers.
Yeah. I remember
from a maker to an individual.
Yeah.
Those numbers are really only for the makers to discern what it is. How I see it, anyways.
Yeah.
But this mouthpiece works very well. It's a C B cup as opposed to a BC. So it is a C bowl shaped mouthpiece.
Right.
That is the depth of a B cup.
Oh, right. Okay. So that's what that means.
Yeah, and so instead of being the B, which is a more V shaped mouthpiece with a shallower depth of a C. So
yeah. Okay. Right.
At least that's how this one works.
So you're even teaching me right now.
Not all makers, not all systems, actually all mouthpiece maker systems are entirely different.
Yeah.
I think they purposefully number them differently so you'll have no idea what you're doing. I do play the Wick 4 on my Besson currently.
Yep. And then the soprano?
And then the soprano, it really depends on the repertoire that I'm playing. I have found that I don't do super well on soprano playing the really big, deep mouthpieces.
Yeah.
It's just a lot more effort than it has to be, and you can still get a very similar sound because that concept of sound is really all in our heads. You sound how you sound. A mouthpiece can only do so much. All it really does is make your job a little bit easier. But how you sound is how you sound. So I do have more flexibility in mouthpieces that I choose for certain things with that sort of mentality. I don't feel locked into a particular way of playing. But
I'm glad you say that because it's something that I harp on a lot about on a lot of different Facebook forums. It's like, oh, this mouthpiece is doing that and blah. It's like, no, get the mouthpiece and the horn that feel the best for you.
Yes.
And then the sound that's in your head will come out because it's the sound that's in your head.
So this mouthpiece is it's a Schilke Thompson model.
Yeah, right.
I have no idea if they even still produce these.
Yeah.
I think it was something that...
As in the James Thompson?
Yeah, and I think he used it as a piccolo mouthpiece at some point. But as you can see, it's not super shallow for a soft mouthpiece. But Jim is also known for playing on fishbowl-sized mouthpieces, which I certainly can't do.
Yeah.
But this was just big enough that it allows me to get a broader sound on the instrument, and it still makes playing in the upper extremes of the range much easier. But this particular mouthpiece, I get a lot more control. I was between the G on top of the staff and the D or E above it. I have more control with this than I do on the Schilke 11AX, which I use I use that mouthpiece a lot with Lexington Brass Band because it sort of fits the sound of that band, a little bit more.
And the Collins had a few notes right up there, didn't it?
Yeah, quite a lot of them.
Yeah. And then your B-flat trumpet.
B-flat, the B-flat, this B-flat is the one I use the most mouthpieces on, I think, because I can get so many different colors of sounds, and my job requirements when I'm playing B-flat trumpet are so different from one gig to the next. But currently, I'm playing the Yamaha Fritz Damro artist model mouthpiece, and from what I understand, it is about a Bach 2 to 2C.
Yeah, okay.
It's not quite as flat as the 2C. It's got a sharper bite on the inside, which is what I particularly love about it. That inside bite is where you really get that quick response.
Yeah,
from
right.
The mouthpiece. Yeah. But it's got a pretty deep cup to it and 24 throat.
Yeah, right.
I could not tell you what the backbore is. I have no clue.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. I like it.
Yeah. So you got different rim sizes, different cup sizes, different everything for each horn.
But everything that I play is very close to the same rim size.
Yeah.
For a while, I did play the exact same rim on everything, and I know a lot of players that do this. But for me, I actually found, and personally, I don't want anybody to understand that this is what you should do. That's not what I'm saying. But personally, I have found that my endurance and my overall strength, I think, is diminished slightly when I'm playing exactly the same mouthpiece.
Yeah, right.
I actually find it easier to be adjusting to other things. I feel more fresh throughout most of my responsibilities, just changing from one to the next, which sounds a little bit contradictory. And a lot of people do think it is.
Yeah.
But for me, I think it works much better.
Yeah. Everyone, once again, something that I talk about a lot. Everyone is different, and everyone has different needs and does different things. But it's making the right thing work for you. So, one thing that I wanted to ask you as well. Now, you were talking before about how you had to make sure that your practice is right. To get through those down sort of times. Now you're recently a father, right? Congratulations, right? Now, how have you had to change your practice so that you can be a father at home? Because there are nappy duties, there's nighttime feeds, there's the teaching, the spending the time with your kids, and then there's the time with your wife that you need to have as well. So, and then we have to kind of suddenly go from, I've got all of the hours to practice, I'm just going to do a 20-minute session here and a 20-minute session there.
And that's exactly how my day was before she was born.
Yeah.
So our daughter, Aria, is almost 8 months. She'll be 8 months old next week. And fortunately, she's sort of adopted a daily schedule that's fairly regular. So
that'll change soon.
She's on about a 4. Yes, this is what everybody says, and it does change from day to day. But she's on about a 4-hour eating cycle. She tends to get a couple hours nap in the middle of the day. But through the night, she's been sleeping very well, which is a true blessing. But that may also change, and I can get that off the table. Everyone wants to stare at the kids, not me.
Yeah. So did you change what you practiced, or obviously the frequency must have changed?
Well, I've found it sort of fortunately and unfortunately, I've had to search around quite a bit more for finding practice mutes that I'm able to practice in when she's asleep, so that I don't wake her up. And I think the most effective thing that I've found so far is using a Harman or bubble mute with this little piece. It's insert that you put into it. It's made by Matt Anklin in Cincinnati, and it's called the silencer.
Right.
And that's what I've found the least amount of resistance in. I mean, granted, it is louder than a lot of practice mutes out there, but with the less resistance in it, I can practice more.
Yeah,
I get more of a natural feeling on the trumpet.
Great.
So oftentimes I'll practice some of my normal fundamentals while she's down on the floor playing. She's pretty easy to take care of. She likes to entertain herself.
Yeah.
But whenever my wife gets home from work, we'll usually have a quick dinner at the house, and then I've been going into University of Kentucky, which is just a few minutes away from my house, and using their practice rooms to practice for the rest of the time that I need to. So oftentimes that could be from 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock until 2 or 3 a.m.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's the way to get it done. You have to figure out a way to make it work.
Yeah, just make it work.
And fortunately, we've been able to adopt a fairly regular schedule.
That's awesome. That's awesome. All right. Well, I think we've got to wrap it up now. But Chase, thanks very much for your time.
Thank you so much.
It's been
Real
awesome
pleasure
to
be here.
work with you these last week and to hear your recording. It's a new recording of Brendan Collins' Concerto for Soprano Cornet. It'll come out on the ABC label, so yeah, stay tuned and you can check that out. But how can people find you?
I'm available on social media, pretty much everywhere. You can find me on Facebook, SoundCloud. I have a website, which is trumpetchase.com. And if you use the Trumpet Chase, you can search any social media with that tag and find me.
Yeah, great, cool. I'll put some links in the description for all of these so that people can find you, and for that little silencer as well.
Excellent. So yeah, it's really an amazing little thing.
Yeah, too easy. Well, thanks guys for tuning in. If you're stuck around this long, you obviously need to subscribe to this channel. So just hit the subscribe button and also tick the bell notification, and you can get some notifications when I upload future videos. But for now, Chase, thanks for coming with us.
Thank you, Phil. Really appreciate it.
I'm Phill O'Neill from Australia, and happy practicing.